The big size, with little
Bigger
size.
or smaller? Yeah, we need to be equals. Yeah, that's how it works.
See, I actually did like a Zoom show like for an immigration company, and they always had this issue. But what I realized really quickly, like there is to a point you can control that. But like I start to relax, I get smaller. If I start to get bigger, I'm bigger, right? There's the human habit and movement.
Don't relax. We're gonna talk writing, Josh. There's no relaxing here.
I'm totally I'm a chill dude. I've always been a chill dude. That's just who I am. I'm not.
That is true.
Yeah, I'm chill. I mean, I'm passionate, but I'm chill. I just I don't have that like. I do get amped. I do get excited, but it's just like it's yeah. Like I just take it easy and stuff like that. So how have you been?
Great, actually. Lots going on. It's been another crazy year, but really good. Working on book coaching mostly, working with lots of writers and getting books out into the world, and excited to be doing that. It's an awesome job. I'm very grateful for my job.
So Suzy, the teacher. I mean, did you ever imagine like you're essentially a teacher at this point? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're essentially a teacher.
What's funny is I actually come from a family of academics, and so I come from a family of academics, and I just never thought that I would be teaching. Like that's not, but it just happened because I had the information and I wanted to help, and I figured it out over 10 years of how to write a book and all these things, and then I wanted to help other writers that were struggling because I don't think that the processes that are out there right now help writers. So.
No.
I kind of had to do it. It's like I felt called to do it, and now I do it, and it's so much fun.
So I have this. Well, at this point, I've gotten into the habit of just doing it with all my stuff. Just like, you know what, I just gotta plow through it. I'm currently in I'm doing a Russian fairy tale / I made the Knights of the Round evil, and I have created. All right, and so my main hero, what used to be in the Knights of the Round, she's like the female equivalent of Parker. Did you ever read any of the Parker novels?
No. You're going to put me on the spot here.
What? Yeah.
You're going to put me on the spot here.
No. Well, that's okay. Hey, listen, I don't read everything. I wish I did, but I don't. I read a lot
of unpublished novels now. A lot.
Yeah. So I mean,
this week, right?
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like what happens is, and this is what I've noticed as a creative, is I don't read as much for leisure as I would like to right now because I'm too busy making shit, right? That's just how it goes. My goal is 40 books this year. Ooh, we're going to say a quick hello to somebody. This is the one and only Jag Tress. Jag Tress, Susan, you both, so Jag is actually one of my beta readers. She eviscerates me she eviscerates me on a regular basis in the best ways. I sent her something. I haven't heard back from her in a bit, but I'm sure she's been busy. So, hey, Jag, how you doing?
Put her on the spot.
Yeah, always. She's a friend. Listen, if you can't torture your friends, they're not friends, right? So
fair enough.
Yeah, it's true. But no, going back to what you're saying, it's funny to me because I think what happens is we get. Oh, see, there you go.
I'm doing some more this week, Jag. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's the big promo piece of the episode. Yes.
But Josh, you have put in the time, so you're like, oh, I just roll with it, but you don't. You're actually like working on it, right? Working on it.
It's discipline. Like at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, right? I had this like epiphany about, I'd say 5 years ago. Right before I fixed my teeth, right? I had this epiphany, and this was the epiphany. People do, no matter what the situation is, people do exactly what they want to do. Mm-hmm. So the question then at that point is, does your wants control you, or do you control your wants? That's really the only question, right?
Well, there's another question. Can I offer, do you have the skills to do what you want, right? Because you got to work at that. It's It's like any other, you don't become a surgeon, you don't become a dentist, you don't become any of those things without learning. And somehow people come into writing thinking that it should just hit them like a bolt of lightning, and it doesn't, right? No. Like it doesn't, and you got to work at it, and you've worked at it.
Well, sure, no, absolutely, and you have too. But again, I would argue. The only thing I would argue with you on that is I think the wants are even more important than the skill. I think most skills can be learned.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But you gotta want it. You gotta want it. What do you want at the end of the day, right? Do you really want to write a book, and what do you want from that? What does that
Yeah.
mean? Does it mean you want to be a speaker? Does it mean you want to be a teacher? Does it mean that you want to write for friends and family? Does it mean you want to get a big 5 publishing deal? I mean, there's a huge range of wants out there, and so identifying what that is and why you're doing it and what you actually want will determine how much work you have to do to get there.
Yeah, well, work and also your like the path. Like for me, like
Yeah.
my goals, like for my publishing for the next 3 books, I'm probably doing Kickstarters for all 3 of my next books.
I
Yeah,
love Kickstarter.
no,
I come from the startup world, right? Like before writing
oh yeah,
startup.
but before the last year and a bit, like for the last, I've been in the Kickstarter comic community a lot. I've been working with some of these people too. Some of them are absolutely incredible. So I have a very, like I said, I've crowdfunded for things like my teeth before, but like for like me personally, like this idea of what this is, I've understood it. And like I said, just real quick, like everybody, like, yes, the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter is an anomaly in a lot of ways,
but amazing and deserved, and he worked at it, right? Like,
yeah, and I think the thing is, it's just understanding the hows. Like one of the things I like as a freelancer, because I've been freelancing now for the last 2 years for the most part. That's what I've been doing. Is I've been understanding like how does creatives often have this illusion that there's a lot of creatives that believe that there's no money in writing. I have found that nothing could be further from the truth, right?
Not.
But it's the hows, right? Like how does it work? How do these systems work? How can you find a niche? And one of the things about freelancing and what you've done is what a lot of good freelancers do. You are right. Is this?
Yeah.
You found a place where you can serve a community. How can I help you? Which is a very like that's honestly probably the biggest thing. It took me about 6 months into freelancing to figure that shit out, right? It's because it was just like, okay, this is what I need to do. So how do I go about and best do it? And then there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of ups and downs. The thing I love about freelancing is I get to kind of choose who I work with. The thing I don't like about freelancing is sometimes you don't know where your next check's coming from, right? That's the ups and the downs.
I mean, I came from the corporate world, and now I run my own business that's centered around helping writers. I mean, I also write, but I also do a lot of things centered around that. And you're right, you do have to pay attention to what lights you up, but you also need to recognize what people want and listen to that. Now, people ask me every single day to do things that I don't want to do, and I say no. And that's really hard. That's really, really hard for me to do, and I'm sure it's hard for you to do too, is to say no to some of those things because I can only help so many people. But everything that I'm trying to build is to be able to help more and more writers because the results can be amazing. And I'm sure that your clients feel that too. When you actually help a client, they're like, oh my gosh, this is like mind-blowing, life-changing, whatever, right? And so that's very fulfilling as a creator as well. And I love helping.
Yeah, it's just finding your roles. Like for me, actually, about 3 weeks ago, I got interviewed for a podcast hosting job, and kind of gave me the idea to kind of go down the path I'm trying to go down now, because it's like what they wanted me to do is not that different from what I already do. It's just taking it to another level, right? So it's just like
open to ideas.
Yeah.
But like it's not all going to be the same for everybody. So what Brandon Sanderson did is not going to be the path necessarily, but you can learn from that and you can pick and choose what you do from that. But whatever you do, there's steps and there's work and there's time and there's investment. It's not going to be like that bolt of lightning, right?
Unless you're very lucky. And even then,
unless you're very lucky, but that's not the way. I don't think that he got lucky. I think that was very well deserved from a long time building his platform and listening to what his fans are asking for, right?
Well, I don't think he got lucky. Like in his particular case, what I think it was, like, to me, I call it the Disneyland approach. Like that's what I approached, because when you go to Disneyland, let's be honest.
I read that. You
read the blog post I put on that, right? I put that originally in my newsletter, and then I put it as a blog post. Actually, it was a really popular blog post, so it was just like one of those things where it's like it makes sense. He offered a very cool novelty item. He made it valuable by his price point. He made it incredibly valuable and made it very desirable. And also, he's trying to filter out. I don't think I mean, he's got a unique problem in the sense that now he might actually need a warehouse, like legitimately need a
Yeah,
warehouse.
like I was looking at that, and as a former operations professional, I'm like, wow. Like everybody's like, oh, he's so lucky, it's just free money, and I'm like, no, now he's gonna build a whole business around fulfillment. That's not easy, and
No.
especially today, with all the challenges that are happening in, like, I'm so happy that I used to deal with international shipments and printing and all kinds of stuff, all over the world, and that was my job, and I'm really happy that I'm not trying to do it in today's climate. It's craziness.
And I used to actually be in the shipping industry myself, so I got to
Oh,
see
that's
how
right.
everything worked. Oh,
And when
yeah,
it doesn't work, I mean, I've been there, right? When it doesn't work, when something changes, when a tariff changes, or when
yeah.
shipping lines get disrupted or whatever. And yeah, this right now is a whole new ballgame. So kudos to them, and glad they made a lot of money, but they have a lot of work ahead of them to get it
I know,
fulfilled as well.
like he's in a position he can do it. Like he's in an interesting position for his next contract with Tor next year because he's got a hell of a bit of leverage now that he didn't have before. But that's an interesting thing. Again, I've been watching just the different publishing aspects of where things are going. So I guess I should ask this because you are teaching people how to write a book. What do you do
Yeah.
for like do you give publishing advice at this point?
So I do. I absolutely do. I see a lot of contracts, Josh. So I'm pretty in tune with what's happening. When I review a contract for clients or boot camp, like students, whatever, I don't charge for that. I'm not a lawyer,
No.
so I don't want to specifically. But I've seen enough to know what's happening in the industry. And like every single week, I get clients and students calling, being like, hey, I'm signing with this agent, or I'm doing this deal. So I'm pretty up on what's happening. I do give advice, but again, I find a lot of people in the writing world give very prescriptive advice, like you should go this path or you should go that path. And I'm very much about what is it that you, the creative, want, and then being open to it. Because part of the fun for me about melding this business past and this awesome creative writer presence that I am today is building it however people want, right? And so I totally respect all the different avenues of publishing, and then I refer them to other people who can tell them the little minutia of actually self-publishing or actually doing those pieces. But yeah, listening to what people want to do and directing them in the right way. The cool thing about writing a book is I don't believe it matters what path anymore you're going. You got to write the best book that you got to have the best chance of success, right? It doesn't matter whether you're writing it for Big Five or whether you're writing it for friends and family. At the end of the day, if you've got a vision about what that book looks like and how people are going to react when they actually read it, that's what I teach. I teach how to get that book that's in your mind, like, and then you write it. And I see all these memes. I love them. They're like, the book I think I'm writing, it's like this epic thing. And then the book that I actually end up writing, it's like these little stick figures, right? So that, how do you translate that brilliant world and that experience into, like, what are those skills that you need to actually make it that? And that's what I focus on. And whether, it doesn't matter what shape or where you're going. I do work with students and clients on querying, and I get a lot of questions about that and a lot of requests for courses. And I'm always like, I don't want to do a course on just querying. That's no fun. That's the easy part, right? Get the book right. Get the book right, and then talk to me about it, and we'll make sure that you pitch it in a way that's exciting and that does it justice. But if the book isn't there behind it, I can write you the best pitch, or you can write the best pitch, and if the book isn't there, it doesn't matter, right?
I find it's kind of like a bit of both today. I think we have hit a bit of an era where and something I just realized, like, just doing this podcast, is that there's a lot of personal branding is a lot more important now than it was in the past, right? So what I've kind of like see with the whole thing going is you almost do have to have a decent, I'm not going to say a decent pitch game, but I think it is definitely part of the retribution, because there's a lot of good books out there.
Well, you have to get your book found, but you've got to
Yeah.
have the chops to back it up. Like, you
Oh,
can't put
absolutely.
crap out there and then sell it as diamonds, and then people go read it and go, this is crap, right? Like you don't want
Oh
to
yeah.
do that bait and switch. They have to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, absolutely. Like there's a skill set to it, right? There's an absolute skill set on both ends. I do think, yeah, ultimately it's your stories are why people, I want to say to some degree, the type of person you are is important, but also just, but at the end of the day, it's the story you write that tends to get people to come back for more. If you can create a feeling that they can't get anywhere else, or you create an experience that they think is wonderful, whether you make them laugh or cry, or you tear they want to tear you. Where's the next book? You got that, you got them, and right, and that's what you want. Like those are the skills. It took me, I think, yeah, it really took me probably for the last few books I've written to really realize, like, I focus now, I keep it simpler. Like that, like in terms of like techniques, it's like,
Yeah.
what's the story about? And then going down the scene, how is my scene advancing that story?
Absolutely. That's narrative drive, right? Like how do you make sure that everything, I'm going to geek out here. How do you make sure that every single thing that you include, if you're talking about the picture on the wall, what is that sort of like, not overtly, but like how does that all point your reader in the same direction? How does that create the next scene? How does that drive us to the next scene with a but or therefore and not and then, right? So how do you build that? And those are the pieces that people miss.
Yeah.
I currently, it's interesting this week. I think I said before the break, I took last week off, which I never do, but and then say off. I didn't take client meetings, like I didn't do one-on-one client meetings last week, and then I thought I could fit everything else into the margins, and it didn't really work out that well. So this week I got a bit slammed. I had 9 edits to do for clients, but 2 of them really stand out when we're talking about this. I'm working with one writer who has a book that when she kind of wrote it piecemeal and when she put it all together, it was 160,000 words, which is too long for her genre, right? And she knew that. And so we're literally going through and taking out sections that are good. And she's like, but I like that one. I'm like, it doesn't matter. What we're looking for is sections that you can take out. And a lot of them are whole scenes. So she can use them and repurpose them into her marketing later, which is awesome. But we're taking out whole scenes to make it into the size because she wants to be traditionally published. Then I have another writer who's got a book and she sort of wrote from the beginning to the end, and it's 50,000 words, and that isn't long enough, right? So then we're adding or expanding. It was weird because I'm working with these 2 people literally back to back, working with these 2 different manuscripts that have the opposite issue, and yeah, so it's really about what are all the things. So in the one where it was too long, it's not about changing it. She wrote it, it's a memoir, and so it's got snippets and pieces and scenes. And so which of those are not adding to the main character? Which of those can we put a line somewhere else so we get that same information? And we're going to get there really quickly. Like it's not a huge exercise for her because it's so clear. We mapped it out so clearly. And she took writing from other places. That's why it's too long. We didn't do that together. But we have it so clear in her outline what she's trying to accomplish, whose story is she telling, all of those things, and what's the takeaway? What do you want the readers to understand when they read this book? So we could test each of those scenes. Okay, can they understand that somewhere else? Yeah. Does this actually advance the main character story, even though she's got a bunch of point of view characters? Is this the story that you're telling? No? All right, let's put it to the side, right? We'll do something else with it later. But it becomes really clear when you test it against that. We should all have that problem that we write too much. That's not everybody's issue, right?
No, I'm more there. I like writing less. I'm a big like science fiction pulp guy, so I like that size. I just enjoy that size. It's a fun story. Sometimes the story's bigger. Sometimes it's like I don't want enough, but I have to, right? If I want to do it justice. And then sometimes like I just wrote kind of like I'm illustrating a book too. I never thought I'd be doing that, but I'm actually illustrating it. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Well, no, it's got partially a comic book feel to it in parts. I'm actually working on that point. Yeah, Jag is laughing because she's read that story, right? So, right, it's a very much, but again, it's something I never thought I'd do. So it's a different kind of story than the novel I'm currently working on, which I'm thinking is going to be 70, but it might be bigger or just a little smaller? Like
And you
in that,
have ranges, right? Like there's
yeah.
definitely ranges that you can be within. I'm not somebody who's like hardcore. Yeah, but when you meet, oftentimes they write new writers, and this is one of the things that like I remember one of the writers that I met with at a sort of as a favor, she'd been referred to me by somebody that I know, and I'm talking with her, and she'd written a book that was 175,000, I think, I can't remember, but it was like really outside the scope, and she was seeing rejections. And I was saying to her, she really wanted to be traditionally published. And I was saying to her, that's great. And she says, well, she's listing all these places that were the exception to the rule, all these books that she admired. And I was like, that's great. But you're narrowing the amount of readers that are going to look at it, right? Like if you want to go the agent route, they're going to look at that and think that you didn't do your research, right? And so a lot of people aren't going to read it. You might find that diamond in the rough, but you're going to really make things harder for yourself. And it was funny because I got off that call, and it was sort of a late afternoon thing, and I was in my office, and I came out, and my husband's like, who is that? Like, what were you doing? And because he kind of heard me, and it was a long call. And I said, oh, I didn't win that business. Like, it's not going to work with me. I don't think she was happy with what I had to say. And what was funny was she came back and she did my boot camp, the very first edition of the boot camp, which is just over a year ago now. And she decided to write a different novel. And she wrote it during the boot camp, and she ended up getting a huge book deal and getting that traditionally published. And she was like, oh my gosh. And I love telling that story because I bug her about it. I'm like, remember when you like argued with me on that phone call? And I was like, dude, you're making it hard. Like, you're making it really hard for yourself. Word count matters. It does matter.
Well, it's knowing what your audience is. Like going back, we say like choosing your path. If you're going to go down a traditional path, let's say you want to work with Simon and Schuster. I think it's still Simon and Schuster. I could be wrong with all the big five.
They're always like, yeah.
We're going to say Simon and Schuster for the purposes of this podcast. Okay. And they generally publish 70,000 word-ish books, right?
Yeah.
Right. They're going to want they're going to expect a certain formula. And the reason why is because this is what they sell, and they've sold them for a very long time.
There's some practical reasons too, even if they want to make an exception, it's just more expensive. So even doesn't matter, actually, it actually doesn't matter. Here's another good example. It doesn't matter whether you want to be traditionally published or whether you want to self-publish. These things hold true. Number one, it's just going to be more expensive, right? Because everything is more expensive. The editing is going to be more expensive. Your time is more expensive. The layout is more expensive. The paper's more expensive. Everything's more expensive if you've written a book that's twice the length that's expected, right? So even if you're self-publishing or you want to go with a small press or something else, you don't want to, like I say this to people, do you really want to be charging $35 for your book just to make a profit? Because you don't, right? So you got to make some sense out of it. And sometimes you can split. I had another boot camper from last spring that split 100, same sort of word count, 175,000. She split it into 3 books because it was middle grade. And it was one of those things where she came to me and she said, I'm querying this middle grade novel, and I don't know why I'm just getting it rejected over and over, and it's fast. And I'm like, because it's like 3 times the length that it needs to be. And again, there's exceptions. There are books out there that do that, but you're making things more difficult for yourself. And now she's got a 3-book story that she can actually, do something with and make a profit with, even. Yeah, my God, says Jag. Yeah, right. And so, but these are things that I get. It is too much, but she had modeled it after, like, it's fair. There are exceptions out there. There are books out there that do that, but paying attention to the rules before you break them and before you become a huge success can save you a lot of heartache in the end, no matter what publishing route you go to.
Oh yeah. No, it's like I said, it's important. You got, like, again, go back. It's a decision of what you want to do and how you want to do it. Like, my Alice books are a very particular niche. They're not going to be for everybody. I knew that, but that's okay. I still did it
anyway. Absolutely.
Right?
You gotta figure out what you want in that book that you want to actually put out into the world. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's it. And for everybody, that's a different answer. Now, my goal is to get some physical, like, again, and the other thing too is, I mean, if you're speaking from an author's standpoint, it does not hurt to offer multiple different editions of your book. It definitely doesn't hurt because, again, there's different audiences as well. Again, something I've been educating myself in the last little bit is, like, I mean, there are books that sometimes, so the Parker novel I mentioned for you, like I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of so Darwin Cook drew them as like they're a special little like book. Now,
Hmm.
they're not, obviously they're a little bit pricier than average, but for like an art person like me, it's like, okay, I want this book because it's such
But
a
that's
cool.
because it's something that you are willing to pay for because the product
Exactly.
is amazing, right? Yeah,
That's
you can absolutely be the exception. Absolutely.
well, it's not even just the exception. It's also just recognizing too, like there's different audiences. If you want a standard paperback audience, definitely follow that format. But also, if you want to go sometimes an extra mile, and this is something I am going to say, there are advantages sometimes going to the extra mile with your certain audiences, because some audiences do want to be spoiled. But again, that's something a lot of authors, I'm not going to say every author doesn't think about, but a lot of us still haven't really thought about. It's like I have an edition for these people that just want to read the story. I have another edition for people that really want to be spoiled rotten, right?
Yeah, and I love that. That's what book box, like limited editions in book
Yeah,
boxes and things like
exactly.
that. It still starts with writing a great book, right? And then
Yeah,
building that audience and getting the word out there and all of those things. Because most of those people that are going to buy those, special editions, they're not new readers. They either own the regular copy and want the other one, or they own your other books and they're willing to invest, right? So,
exactly.
when a writer is starting out, not aiming for creating that right off the bat is usually a good strategy, because you got to build that audience and you
Yeah,
got to build that interest in your book so that people trust that what you write is going to be great, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, okay, so you've talked about teaching a bunch of writers, okay, and you obviously write your own books. Now, I don't know where
Yeah.
the status of all your own books are right now. I don't know if you can actually talk about some of the things you're working on right
Sure.
now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I have one question before we actually get into that. Does the teaching itch and you creating the book itch, are they the same itch, or or is it satisfactory for different reasons?
Yeah, they're not the same. They're not the same. Um, I mean, many of us who teach are guilty of not focusing on our own writing enough, right? I'm doing a lot of ghostwriting actually this year, and I got to get out of that and more too, because I accept projects because I'm like, that's cool, I want to do that. But I got to get back to writing my own. I'm writing a lot of nonfiction books on writing. And I probably will produce. I have one that I'm working on now. That's sort of my own philosophy, so that those of you guys out there that want to learn how to write a book, you can buy that book. So I'm kind of working on that. But yeah, getting back to fiction. And during the pandemic, I am agented, I am traditionally published, and it was a bit slow. So I had a couple of books in the backlog that were on submission that were kind of waiting. So then I turned to this, but I got to get back to that. I got to get back to that for sure. It's not
So,
the same itch. It's such a luxury to be able to write my own things. I love helping other people. I get very invested. I
sure.
work with 10, I'm working on 10 to 15 books at any given moment with other writers, but they're not my books, and that's okay. I'm super, super proud of everything that they all do with those books. And then in the boot camps, I'm working with, 20, 30, 40 writers at a time. And that's exciting too, and helping them along. But no, it's not the same itch, because I have, everything that I work on. The cool thing is, though, it is kind of like the other side of it. The more I edit, the more I work on it, the easier it becomes to write my own books. And I would advise that for anybody who's writing, if you critique for other people, especially if you're really get good at it and get constructive about it, and that doesn't mean slashing people, that's a whole other conversation, because I think that critiquing can be really harmful if you don't know what you're doing to writers. But
Okay.
if you do that and you learn from it, it makes your writing so much stronger. The ease with which I can go through a manuscript and be like, here's what's not working, and people are like, how did you get that so quickly? It's just because I've seen thousands of manuscripts, right? Or hundreds, or whatever the number is, right?
Yeah, and you just get to the point where you understand the structure of a story, and
It's hard to see that in your own, though.
oh
It's
no,
really
no,
hard to see it in your own work.
I know.
Doesn't mean that my work is perfect.
Oh no, you can't, because here's the thing: we all have our own like voice, and even though technically speaking, we know. I actually just had for my advertising thing, I actually went to a professional guy that copyrights for a living. Okay, read this. Tell me what you think. And he was very accurate about going through the website. Goes, this is not bad, but and he gave me a really lesson. He goes, here's the problem. Most of us cannot see past our own voice. We just can't. And it's not a criticism. Like our voice is why our stories sing, because right? Because every story has been told. It's the fact that you have your own way of telling it. Like I cannot duplicate how you tell a story. There's no
No,
way in hell,
absolutely. We'll be
right?
completely different. I could give you the same outline, and like a
Yeah.
lot of newer writers come to me and they ask, should I pay for copyright? Should I worry about sharing this? Can I send this to an agent or publisher? They are not going to take your story. They aren't. There are examples out there of bad people taking stories, but they're not legit people in the publishing industry. And even if they did, really, they wouldn't be able to promote it as their own work because it'd be so obvious, right?
It's I mean, it's possible today, I guess, but it's a lot harder to pull off, especially in a world where everything is just so much information out there. You can back up, hey, I did this, and this. Like it's just not worth doing. But I just like I said, just something I just realized. Like I think, yeah, I'm always going to get an editor, not because I think I don't write well. It's just more the fact that I know it. There's just things I'm never going to see. Now, some
Of
things,
course, and
yeah,
missing words for me, and it's funny because I don't see them in other things, and people will sometimes catch them in some of my copy or some of my whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, is this a test?" And I appreciate it, guys. If you've ever sent me a typo, thank you. But it's like your brain fills in the words because I know what I meant to say, right? And it's
mhm.
impossible for me to see it, and I'm okay with that. Like every single book out there has typos. As an editor, does that mean that I'm not good at my job? No, but I'm also not a proofreading editor. I'm a developmental editor. So I'm okay with it.
Well, it's also just the fact. So there's a very old television commercial I think that illustrates this perfectly. There's this guy, he's painting like this football field, and he's putting like the team name on there, right? And the football player comes over, hey, that's really cool, but who are the chefs? He blinks, looks up. It's the chefs, not the Chiefs. It's like, oh, great, koogly moogly, right? Oops. But the thing,
Actually, the funny thing was here, I was at a rink last week at my daughter's tournament, and there was a lot of people that were French Canadian, and they were saying, "Oh, we're going to Seven Chefs," and I thought that was so funny because it's Seven Chiefs, anyways, arena. But yeah, I mean, I also speak French, but I thought it was funny that the arena was called Seven Chefs. But yeah, I get it.
yeah.
I actually heard that one in real life last week.
So there you go, right? But no, for me, I get caught up sometimes. Like I'll get excited about some of the scenes I'm doing on, and I think, yeah, it's great. And that excitement is definitely in the manuscript. But sometimes you read it afterwards and you're like, I miss stuff. The
Or somebody
enthusiasm.
else reads it and says, "I have no idea what's happening here," right?
Yeah, and
I
you're
don't
like,
know.
it's like, what do you mean? And then you see it later. Like sometimes there's a benefit. Like with my stuff, I tend to take like time away from it because you do
Definitely.
see more. You do definitely see more. Now you still don't see everything, and there is a diminishing return with that as well.
Or
First time,
sometimes you look at it and it doesn't feel good at all, and you're like, "What?" And that's not constructive either. Definitely get somebody else. Definitely
yeah,
get somebody else.
but yeah, if you guys want to take that half step, like 2 weeks later, you want to look back and kind of see if you missed stuff because you do. We all do, and it's great. Your editors kind of like you a little bit more because it's a little cleaner, right? So like, yay, it's cleaner. And then they will find your silly shit and they'll give it to you in like a way. It's like, and what do you mean by this? And then sometimes you'll read it and you're like, what did I mean by this? Oops. Right? I mean,
I
that's
don't
me.
know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
sometimes we're in flow, right? Like if you're in flow, and that's not to say that your first drafts need to be perfect. They don't. That's what editors are for. So if you know you're going to an editor, and especially if you work with a book coach, I see drafts like that people are sending me weekly, and then they're all embarrassed. They're like, "Oh, I know I'm making the same mistake. I just wanted to get it down." I'm like, "That's fine. Like I don't care. But I'm going through it. I'm not judging." But I am going to correct it because I might not see this page again until the end of the book is written. So if I see something, I'm going to tell you, right?
Well, I think it's just more the fact that see, I this is the thing, like drawing for me has been great this way because I was terrified of like doing drawing for a long time, right? And then I had this wonderful thought, like 'cause I was fearing that I would suck. Then this was the counter thought. So what if I suck? Right? That's not what this is about. This is about getting it out there. And so like my first drafts, are slogging messes. I don't care. I just literally, I'll throw everything in there because it doesn't matter. I'm like, it can suck right now. It's not done.
But again, what are your goals with that, right? Like you had
Yeah.
a very different reason for wanting to learn to draw, right? And so
Well,
getting
yeah,
the
but
process has been part of it for you.
well, but the thing is, what happens is when I eliminate that block, though, I get better by default because what happens is I'm just putting stuff out there, and just through practice and osmosis, you still get better, right? You're not looking at quite the same goal, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you know that when you hear that voice, because I hear that a lot, like not necessarily about drawing, of course I hear it about writing all the time. What if I suck? But what if you don't?
Yeah.
Right? Or what if you do and you can fix it? Like you said
Mhm.
at the beginning of this chat that we're having, those are skills that can be learned.
Mhm.
So don't give up just because your first draft doesn't match what you thought you were going to do in your head. It's not going to. Get over it, right? Like this is not an instant
Yeah.
gratification profession to be a writer. That was my newsletter this week, was about watching sports and saying I've always been more comfortable sitting for 8 hours and
Yes.
actually writing than going out and sportsing. I mean, I'm a little bit sporty, I suppose, but I've got 3 sporty kids, and my middle child said to me recently, like, I could never be a writer. And I'm like, why? Because he's good at it. And the answer was, well, I watch how long you sit at your desk, and that looks boring. Like he's like, that's awful, right? But the practice and the dedication, and if that's what you enjoy doing, it's the same thing as mastering a sport, or the same thing as mastering art, where practice does make perfect. And it doesn't mean just doing it in a vacuum. It means you're going out there. It's like every Friday night, right? That you try and do a drink and draw and learn from somebody and learn something and work on something.
Yeah.
That's how you get good.
Yeah, that's it, right? And that's the thing. Like that's why I don't worry about. Like, I take that to my writing too. Like I said, my first draft, I don't worry about it at all. Now my 1.52 draft, yeah, I worry about it a little bit
Yeah, and
more.
when you send it to an editor, try your best. Get it as far as you can. You know, and I also work with writers who are never going to get those little things because they don't see them or whatever, and I don't judge. But if all of that is clean, I can go so much deeper, right?
Oh,
And give you
absolutely.
so much better advice than if you're sending me stuff without the punctuation correct, that I have to correct that, then I can't mark it up with the orange and the purple and the red and all the different colors and all the different things. You kind of have to work level by level, right?
So I should ask this because obviously writing is universal skill, whatever story you tell. But are there genres you're more comfortable editing than others?
You know what? It's funny because I work in a book coaching community. So I'm an accredited book coach with Jenny Nash's Author Accelerator. And I work with a lot of book coaches in that community. And Jenny always pushes me to be like, Suzy, you gotta like niche down. And I'm like, well, I don't want to, because I actually enjoy the challenge of doing a lot of different things. But she's pushed me to identify what is it that I want. I want to work with writers with big dreams that want to tackle them. I don't work in horror because it's not something I enjoy doing. I don't work, there's certain genres. I don't do a ton in mystery. I'm doing a little bit. There's certain genres that I don't really work on, and people don't seek me out because it's not my forte. But at the same time, if somebody has a vision, thanks for joining us, Jag. If somebody has a vision of what they want and they want to go for it, I want to teach them. So it's more about the person that I like to write with than about what it is that they're writing. I like to write with people who are open to learning and who don't want to just publish their first draft. I want to work with somebody who wants to actually figure this out and blow the doors off it. I want to work with somebody who wants this, hey, see you soon, Jake, who wants to have their book that they're writing actually change their life. And that's what I want to work on, because it's about the personal transformation of the writer for me, and not about what's on the page.
No, I get that. No, it makes total sense.
But yeah, I mean, people come to me for fantasy, science fiction. I'm doing a ton of romance, a little bit of mystery, and
I was 50-50 on that one with you. I was 50-50 on the romance with you, because I could see you do it. I could actually see you do it, but it was like, maybe not. It would depend right on that one. I figured I do
that a little bit more quietly. a little bit more quietly.
Well,
Yeah, but I do, and I actually have some romance writers that I'm working with, like that have huge book deals with traditional publishers as well, and so that's been a lot of fun. I actually really enjoy working on romance with writers.
It's kind of like, I'm gonna be like, it's a little bit of a, when I'm watching like the publishing industry, that is the genre I watch the most, because they're the ones most on the cutting edge of what's going on in fiction.
And I think that what's been cool for me about that is that, you know, romance gets a bad rap because they are more formulaic, and readers expect a certain thing. And to a certain extent, there's that same thing with mystery. And what I'm finding with writers that I work with is, because of the techniques that I teach, and because of the, you know, the heavy emphasis on show don't tell and all of those things, I'm bringing a level of, well, the writers are bringing a level of depth to romance that all of a sudden, I think the comment was from one of the agents, like, or one of the publishers, it was an open call without an agent, and it was that query literally left off my desk because it was so different, right? So I bring a bit of different techniques, still follow, you know, like we're still following the rules, and we're still doing the formula, and we're still have the story structure and all of those things and the beats that you gotta have, but bringing a fresh voice to it in a way, that writer's voice, and really bringing it out rather than just slapping something together, has made a big difference in how those books are received in the world. So that's been exciting to see.
Well, what's happening is you're seeing a lot more, I would call, cross genres. I look at something like, say, Fond du Lis Jade City. It's a fantasy book, but it's also a science fiction book a little bit. It's a historical a little bit. It's also got kind of like a parallel world kind of theme to it.
Absolutely.
As well.
You're taking the best techniques from different places. When writers come and say, but I have this cross genre, here's the thing, find the primary genre, because there are still rules that readers expect, and there are still rules that publishers expect. You know, but even if you're self-publishing, there's still rules that your readers expect. And if you call it a romance and you don't deliver on those certain things, they won't like it. They may not know why they don't like it, but they're going to pan your book, even if it's good. But you can absolutely take elements from different genres and spice that up, as long as you, whatever you're calling it, just don't disappoint your readers, right? Because they come to it for a certain reason. Yeah.
So here's a story. There's like a story nerdy question for you. Do you like following expectations, or do you like subverting them?
Both. I like knowing the rules and then smashing them down because it's a good reason to do it. But I like to know the rules and just do it with one or two that tweak the story enough. You know the rules before you break them. Because if you break every single rule, you're just making life harder on yourself, because you have to literally create a genre for yourself if you're not following anything, right? And then you don't have an automatic group of readers.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too, like I tend to try to follow expectations, but I twist it in a unique way.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. I find that
serves the story, not just because it's unique. You know, and a lot of writers think that you have to be completely unique, and we've talked about this before. What's the thing that people say in the publishing industry? The publishers all want to buy something that's exactly like something that sold really well, but completely different, right? So you got to give them a little bit of both and see how, you know, you got to pay attention to what, and the way that I twist it, Josh, is I really have studied over the years. I will read anything that's a bestseller because I'm interested. Why is it a bestseller? What was it about it that I think maybe readers like, looking for patterns? What is it that readers like that nobody else has figured out? And how can I replicate that with my writing, with my clients' writing? How can I replicate that so that readers don't know why they like it, but they like it, right? A little bit of psychology in writing.
Yeah, I've been dabbling more in the indie stuff this year. I've been reading some stuff a little bit outside of what I normally read. Like, for example, Year of the Wet by Jen Lieberman. It's not something I would normally read, but it's something I read this year because it's different, and it's something and you learn different things. From the romance side or urban fantasy side, depending on how you look at it, I'm actually a big Alana Andrews fan. I like how and it's because it's a husband and wife team. They do characters so well. That's why their stuff sells as well as it does, is because they just do characters incredibly
right
well.
And so they've taken a genre that typically doesn't dive deep into that, and then they've added some really great writing techniques that make us care about their characters, that's dynamite, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what readers need.
Yeah. And then at the end of the day, like, I realize this, it's about character. Like concepts are awesome and the concepts can definitely add something to it. But what's the story? What's the real story you're telling?
Yeah.
And that, again,
And
this
then
did
tell
not.
it well. And sometimes that real story can be very basic, but if you tell it well, I'll read it, 100 times in 100 different ways because it's awesome.
Yeah, so I know you're not a big comic book person, but probably one of the best examples, modern examples of this, is Saga.
Why do you say I'm not? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I also don't coach people on comic books, but
No. But, although I think there is I definitely think you could help. I am editing some comics. One of the things I've learned is story structure is the same no matter what medium it is. It's just understanding how that medium best tells that story. Right. So
I think Lisa Cron says story is story is story is story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just understanding the rules of how to tell that story in the medium you're in. Like television's it's a visual medium. So you got to think visually to do television. Comics are the same thing. They're more visual than but there's still some prose elements to it. Prose, it's all about creating for lack of a better term, it's like creating a simulation in someone's brain. And
absolutely.
It's right.
My language.
Yes. That's what you're doing.
And I've worked with a lot of screenwriters actually that then want to write novels. And that one's always fascinating. I could call them out, like they send me their sample pages and I'm like, have you done screenwriting in the past? Because you could tell they don't have any setting. And then it's like dialogue. And then they've got this dump of setting at the bottom with all the reactions that I was looking for during it. And it's not kind of interspersed in a way that actually creates something in people's minds.
Yeah, because in screenwriting, the dialogue is everything. Like that's just how it works. The dialogue also tells the story.
The setting, but that's not up to the writer. That's up to the director or the producer to figure out, what it all looks like and what the blocking is and the facial expressions. All of that stuff is not included in the writing. And so you gotta and they have music and sound and all these other mood lighting and like all these other elements that they can do that we can't do, that we have to do with words.
Yeah, you have to do it with words. Like I said, I've seen screenwriters, not like novels. Like I've seen them in YA in particular. It's a lot, like not just YA. There's other genres that do it, but you can tell it's the dialogue always gives it away to me.
Every time. And then they've got all of it at the bottom. But that's it's something that needs to be learned because there's so much formatting for screenwriting. People who write novels know that they need to go and learn how to do screenwriting, right? But the other way around, it's the same thing where it's like they come in from screenwriting and think that they should automatically be able to write a novel, and we need to point out what the rules are that they can learn from, right? Like not the rules because of the story, but just the rules of how to create that image and all the extra things that you need to do when you're writing a book. Because you don't have all of those extra elements or all of those other senses to play with. You have to create them.
Yes. And like I said, you're creating a simulation that hopefully generates some kind of empathic response. If you want to like simplify what a novel does, it's what it does. But like I said, it uses a lot of different tools. It's more of a tool of imagination because it's using in some ways you're getting inside the consciousness of the person reading the book, and that's
yes. And what's cool is so that's an interesting one because actually when we talk, I work with a lot of nonfiction writers as well, and nonfiction writers like always push back and say, well, I don't really have a protagonist. Yeah, you do. It's your reader. It's the reader that's making the change, right? Not you. Not in memoir, but like if you were writing a self-help book, for instance.
Oh, I again, just freelancing, like just doing freelancing in the last year, like I can tell you, like the best nonfiction stuff tells stories. It's not
absolutely.
by a huge shot. By a huge shot. Yeah, it's just the only major
textbooks and we don't want lists of stuff.
No. But I guess like the big thing all I'm saying on that is the big thing with nonfiction is it's understanding again the subject matter. Are you trying to teach something or are you telling a story? Like, what is first? That's really the only question. If you're teaching something, you're still using story. It's just how you use it's a little different than just telling a story. It's the difference
Absolutely.
between journalism and research. That's really the big difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, done all this wonderful stuff. So you got a retreat next week, it is, I believe?
Yeah, it's next week. It's coming up a week today. So a couple times a year, I like to run a retreat as I lead up to my boot camp that I do so that people can come and talk about their writing. And I know that not everybody takes my courses. So Jag said that she did something. She probably did a retreat at some point with me. I do 3 workshops in a row. We also have a Facebook group where you can come and meet tons, like I like to call them the most supportive writers on the internet because we are awesome. And I worried when I started running these communities that I'd have to deal with trolls or negativity. I haven't had to deal with any of it. Now people watching this are going to come and troll me, but I really haven't, because I think we really set the scene. My team and I, we just really are there to support writers. Period. End of story. I want you guys to get those books that are in your brains onto the page. I want you guys to learn something. I want you guys to succeed, to hit those huge goals, whatever they might be. And then there to answer a ton of questions as well, because I've seen a lot in the publishing industry and I find it so difficult to find information. When I first started writing seriously, I think, Josh, you've heard the story, but I was on maternity leave with my 3rd child and she's turning 11 in a couple of months. So over a decade ago, and I looked around and I found it really hard to find resources. And most courses out there will tell you to read literature and to, write poetry and to do all these things. And those are great. But if you're working on a project right now and you want to skip that learning curve and you want to know, how do I make it work? What is actually going to work for my readers? And how do I get that story that's in my brain onto the page, and so that it's not stick figures, that it's actually that well-rounded world that I imagined? Those are the techniques that I like to teach. So if you guys are interested, we are going to have a retreat. It is 3 days. You can check it out at suzyvadori.com /retreat. And you can sign up for that, and then you'll get all the information. I'm doing 3 lives. I'm doing a workshop on goals. I'll have a live Q&A where you can come and ask me every crazy nitty-gritty question that you've ever had about writing, and I will do my best to answer. I get on the hot seat. I get really excited about a lot of those questions because some of them are the same, but people need to know, right?
And then, is it writer's retreat? Is it writer's retreat or just retreat?
Just retreat. suzyvadori.com /retreat. The tricky part is spelling my name. If you can spell that, then you can get it. Are you going to put it on there, or should I spell it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, done.
Yeah, so we're doing that. It's completely free, the retreat. And then at the end of the retreat on the Saturday morning, I will be opening the doors to my Wicked Good Fiction Boot Camp. This is the 4th time I've run it in just over a year. It may be the last time that I run it live. I don't know yet. It has been so much fun. Yeah, it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy. But I love it. But we just have so many other plans with the students that have gone through it before and what they're looking for next, and all the other programs that I want to put into place. So we'll see. This might be the last slide.
I did kind of want to touch on that a little bit before we wrap up, and that's this.
Sure.
You like obviously, like, one of the big things about doing courses, and I speak like this because I did a podcasting course for a particular place, and one of the things that's like, well, how do I follow this up? Now, I definitely do have follow-up material for it, and I may do that this year. But I was like, in your case, like, you've established it, your course is very successful, but I'm sure you also have an audience that goes, well, what else do we have? What else can we learn?
Yeah, and so what ends up happening is people go through the course and then they want to work with me on their books one-on-one, which is amazing, such a great opportunity. But I can only work with so many students. So the reason that I put together the boot camp in the first place was just that. As a book coach working one-on-one, it's not accessible to everybody, right? And I totally recognize that. It's a big investment. So I was trying to do something where I'm like, hey, I'm teaching similar lessons or the same lessons for the first couple of months that I work together. I want to make those accessible to people. So I put together all of those lessons so that they could kind of skip through that first bit of working together. And it got a bit redundant for me to be like, hey, working, because I love working with new writers. It's like I'm telling people the same thing over and over, right? So how do I teach people? How do I get to that aha moment faster with people so that they can recognize what it is that they need to do? I meet a lot of readers or writers that are stuck, and they're like, my writing, that's what I wanted to write, and it's there, and they can't see what it is that they could do so that the reader has that same experience that they expect. I know how to point out what it is in their writing. And so that's what's been really cool about the bootcamp, is to get so many writers over that hurdle, to see those exciting things happen, to see books getting out into the world, and them starting to get the responses from agents, from publishers, from readers, from wherever they're releasing those books, and just the expression of confidence, right? And that they don't have to feel muddled anymore. They don't have to kind of, somebody said, one of my clients said, or one of my students said, it was like, I love writers because they write the best testimonials. It was like I was stumbling around in a temple with a flickering torch, and Suzy shone a bright spotlight, and all of a sudden I knew what to do, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it, but they write the best things, the best notes to me that help me talk about it. For me, it's really difficult to explain what that bootcamp experience is. It's 8 weeks of getting me as your virtual book coach and having me at your beck and call and asking every single question that you ever wanted to know. And at the end of that, they come out knowing what kind of writer they want to be, exactly the story, exactly the steps that they need to go to get it done, and sort of have that path mapped out. And so that's been a lot of fun. But yes, next steps, I don't know. I mentioned on one of the lives during the last bootcamp, I asked some people if they wanted to take learn to become an editor course, and then people went nuts. And I'm still getting emails. Well, when is that course coming? I'm like, it is just kind of like an idea. I don't have it. I'm so busy. I don't have a course yet, but I might, right? So what we're just trying to play with. This week I just hired another assistant. So I've got, I think I have 5 part-time people working with me on this, and it's been a blast. And so, yeah, so just lifting other writers up, bringing us all along for the ride, and trying to figure out how we can help as many people as possible is sort of the goal here. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Last question for this interview, and we'll wrap up in this. So, favorite question you've ever been asked by a writer, and maybe the question you get asked the most.
All right. Okay, so I'll start with, I don't know about my favorite question. People often ask about my drink vehicle. Today it's a beer glass with water, and it's almost empty, so we know that we're done. The question that I get asked the most, or the reason that people come to me as a book coach or come to my sessions, is often a very serious question. So I'm not being flippant here, but they want to know if their writing is good enough. And I want to say that again, because they kind of whisper it, and like I create a really safe environment. No question is stupid, no question is offside. So people eventually come out with like, can you just tell me, is it good? They want to send me their writing, and of course, if you want me to edit your book or read your book, like that takes time. I can't read everybody's book. I wish I could. But so please don't send me your book and ask me if your writing is good. But I think that's what that's the piece that just kills me, because a lot of people hold themselves back because either they think that they're not sure if their writing is good enough and they're too shy or too scared to share it, or they believe that their writing is awesome by virtue of the fact that they wrote it, right? And they don't take the time to get the feedback and realize that sometimes what they think they put on the page isn't quite there yet, right? And they haven't taken the time to learn that skill. So I get those two sort of different ends of the spectrum there, where I'm working with writers who are coming into their own and need the confidence, and working with writers who maybe thought that it was like working and can't understand why they're not getting good reviews or why they're getting rejections, that I can actually show them just a few little things about their writing that they can change to affect somebody very differently. So that's what I guess hear the most. And it might be my favorite. Can I cheat there? It might be my favorite thing to hear from writers, because I know how to help them. And that's really what or I want to help them, and I will spend the time to figure out. Like, it's not like one of those things where it's like, well, you just need to rubber stamp this, and then it's not an easy answer. And so what I've really tried to recreate with my programs, including this retreat, is to recreate that coffee that I used to do with writers, that coffee that I used to meet writers for that I don't have time to do anymore because I get like, 20 requests a week, and the pandemic and lots of reasons, and because I'm in a particular place. But that moment, I want to have that discussion with writers at the retreat. What is it that you want? What are you trying to do? And how can I help? Right? We'll come full circle there. Like, how can I help you? And if I can give you one or two nuggets of inspiration or clear something up that you're like, all right, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. Like, this is this week. I had a writer who had multiple rejections from agents, but very interested agents, that said, I kind of hoping you'd fix this, and I kind of hoping you'd fix that, and maybe come back to me if you can do that. And she brought it to me, this mass of things, and it was 4 agents and 4 sets of feedback. She said, they're all different. And I looked at them, they said, they're not. They're all 4 suggestions to fix the same problem. So here's how we can do this. And she was like, what? And she actually ended up going back to one of those agents with the plan that we worked on together, and said, so I met with a book coach, we're gonna work on these things. Is that what you meant? And the agent signed her on the spot and said, yeah, that's what I want. And she signed her before she's even done the changes. So it's like that conversation about what's missing that I'm trying to replicate. Have a million coffees. That's what I want to do, is have a million coffees with writers and find that thing that's going to get them going, whatever that is.
That's
it's really a big goal.
It is a big goal, but it's something I think you enjoy doing, right?
I
almost
sure
as
do.
much as maybe your own writing. You mentioned nonfiction. I'm just going to ask this, and this is where we'll wrap up. Is any fiction coming out from you anytime soon?
Good question. I have 2 books written that are currently on submission, so could be any day. And then I have an outline of a book that once I finish this nonfiction book that I'll write.
Fair enough. That is,
So,
it's
a long game. I'm always writing. I'm always writing something.
Oh yeah.
Whether or not it has Suzy Vadori's name on it, not necessarily.
Yeah,
I'm always writing something.
But on a personal note, I do hope to see more of something with Suzy Vadori's name on it, because I think Suzy Vadori is a fantastic writer, right? Yay! And I also think she's an excellent teacher too. And
thank you.
Yeah, so I want to see it because I'm a fan, and I'm sure the rest of the world would like to see it someday too. And also, one step closer to your dream as well. So I'm going to do this real quick right here. I'm going to put this back up there while I get to my
next week.
Yes, next week, ladies and gentlemen. If you want, actually, when this airs as an audio, I'm going to be releasing this a touch early because I'm friends with the boss of the show. He can be a bit of an asshole sometimes, but he does. I can persuade him to do some things. So when you guys are listening to this Thursday, coming up. It's Thursday, right?
April 21st to 23rd is the retreat.
Yeah. So Thursday 21st to the weekend, the 23rd. Suzy's doing a boot camp writers retreat. Hello. Basically, come say hi to her. Go to suzyvadori.com/retreat to get this information, how you can join in, sign up, and do your thing. And the only other thing I'm going to mention today, because I'm going to wrap this up relatively quickly, I hope. Why did that happen like that? Give me a second.
We broke it. We broke the internet.
Yeah, I broke my computer.
My retreat.
I broke my computer apparently. So this is hilarious. What I am going to say, ladies and gentlemen, for as long as I'm still here, this will do it for this episode. Just joshing because I can't really move anywhere else on my computer for some strange reason. Tomorrow I'm doing a drink and draw with Joshua Harms. It's going to be a fun little Good Friday. And I'll definitely talk more. But to everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Are you still with me, Suzy?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm still with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, finally. It finally came back. Holy crap. Right.
I'm here.
No,
everybody stampeded to go sign up for the retreat. So
yeah. Go sign.
I still heard you the whole time.
Go sign up for the retreat. I'll be back tomorrow with Joshua Harms. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Let's get those books written, everyone. See you next week.